What is the one leader that you would aspire to be more like?
In situational leadership, there is not a single best leadership style. We are understanding more and more that, for example, the humble leader is the best leader.
How do you go around getting the business ready to sell?
You need to work way in advance. Usually, the small guys are the innovators. And that's why you have the big companies buying the small guys. I know the end goal is about financial performance. However, you cannot start like that.
Right.
You really need to find your passion and do something about it.
You have a multitude of specialties in the business world, right? And you teach multiple classes. But what is your biggest focus, you would say?
My doctoral studies are on organizational leadership.
Organizational leadership.
So just my passion is about leadership.
Okay.
And I also focus on the areas of strategy, organizational behavior, and then business ethics. That will be another good area. And entrepreneurship, that's another passion of mine as well.
Do you own your own businesses and stuff yourself, or you teach it and get people going and helping them build the systems of business and stuff? What would you say along those lines?
Correct. I have owned a couple of businesses, I think actually 3, and have been able to sell 2 of those businesses.
Oh, awesome.
So that was good. That's what I can afford to be a professor.
That makes sense. No,
And so it's a natural step for me to teach about entrepreneurship. I always said that entrepreneurship is a mindset. You don't have to take a class
right
to become an entrepreneur. However, the most education you get, the more tools you get familiar with, the better, right? So I see entrepreneurship as a mindset, a way to see things. You can use a very simple framework like problem identification. You define it quite well. You create a solution, and then you provide the benefits on that. That's it. So I found my students that when they finish the class, the course, they always are thinking, how can I fix this problem here? There is an issue here. What can I provide there? So that's exactly my end goal in that particular sense. So this is foundations of leadership, entrepreneurship. So it's an introduction to the world of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I know you're going to talk on leadership today, but I'd like to also just dive into. You basically covered the basics of entrepreneurship. You identify a need, you figure out a way to solve that need, and then you figure out a way to monetize that to your clients. Correct? Is that basically it?
At the end of the day, it needs to be profitable and feasible and desirable. Those are the 3 dimensions of any business idea or product idea you will offer. Somebody wants it, it's feasible, you can do it, and it's profitable. That means that you can make money out of that, so a profit.
That makes sense. So you said you sold 2 businesses. How do you go around actually getting the business ready to sell?
You need to work way in advance.
Yeah.
Have your books in order. You know, the investor or the buyer wants to do due diligence, and they want to see if what they are paying for the money is true value and is the expected return on the investment is going to be there. There are several ratios you can use for that, depending on the industry you do. But what I did is you need to make, I remember one of the businesses, I started my first profit, I believe, out of the first month, let's say, was $300, just to give you that. And then after 6-8 months, we passed the 6 figures.
That's crazy.
I was amazing and explosive growth.
That's nuts. Wow.
We started from the garage, as typical story here in the U.S., and then we moved to an office, we hired people, we ended up with substantial equipment and personnel. And then it was so interesting because what I was looking for, and this is part of leadership, we can link to that.
Yeah,
Entrepreneurs are leaders.
Yes.
There is no question about it. And I was in a conference, I was invited to be a guest speaker, and there was one individual from the radio business. I did radio for 7-8 years, so I needed to connect with this individual somehow, and we connected. And I said to him, after when the business was already up and running, and I think that was my 7th year, and I told him, he was the sales manager, and I said, listen, come and work for me. And I said, I offer you my salary.
Wow.
I will stop receiving for a year money, and that was fine with me, as long as another person will come and said, let's take it to the next level. So he didn't really take it seriously the first time, and then I said it again, and then the third time, and I said, I'm very serious. The story short is that he ended up coming and said, the only way to do this is if I buy the business. No partnership, but actually buying the business. And we talk, we lawyer up. I opened the books, due diligence, not compete agreements, etc., etc. And then it was a table offer on the table, and boom. I had to work for them, for the new company, for a year.
Oh, okay.
That was part of the deal.
Yeah.
Transition, succession planning, all that kind of stuff. And then in that year, we took it to the next level. And so that was a very interesting experience. So it was very complex.
Yeah,
concept.
Definitely. Wow.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience to go through.
Well, I know right now, my brother and a couple of us started a small window washing business here, and we've been trying to get that up and running. So it's been quite an experience, quite a journey along the way, quite a journey trying to figure out how to get your contractor's license, how to get the business license set up, how to get your bank account, your books in order. I would say we are not the best at that, and I realized organization and making sure that a system in place that you can repeat over and over again, especially for a service-based business, is super important, and we're getting there. We'll see if we're going to keep going. We're like, I don't know if the entrepreneurial journey is quite for us, but it is definitely a learning experience.
My advice is you might need to kiss several frogs before you find your princess or prince, right?
Yeah.
I tried with my wife. We tried 3 different businesses before we actually were able to hit the ball out of the park. So that's an experience in itself. So we 3 different other businesses until we said, you know what, we have those 3-4 businesses going on. We need to decide for one. Let's focus. Boom, gone. But everything you do will give you experiences, especially if you fail and fail forward and learn fast and fail cheap.
Yeah.
Right, low cost. And I think you will learn a big deal. Something that happens in the market has to do that you need to create a value proposition. Something like, why should I give you my business versus the other guy? So you need to be very clear in that message.
Right.
And the second is about a competitive advantage. How are you unique in the market? Is that sustainable, for example, right? Are you doing something that the competition is not doing? Or are you doing it better and faster and cheaper than the competition? So this is about the strategy. Now we're talking about the strategy in that particular sense. But I congratulate you on those efforts. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I've told my brother, I'm like, this is the cheapest education we can ever have in business, really. I mean, even going to college, you learn a lot, but you don't quite learn it until you're actually doing it, and it's quite an experience.
When I teach, I know the students are thinking in their minds, I want to be using that when I'm there in the business world, in my own business or working for corporate. And the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. What I tell to students is there is nothing better than a good theory. Once you understand theory, you will be able to apply the theory itself or some components, or actually bring several elements together and then being able to analyze, to strategize, to define, to formulate. Otherwise, you don't know, and it takes longer for you to explore that. I give an example. When I graduated from my master's and I joined a corporate business organization, it was a 500 Fortune company. I was reporting to the VP. My title was Senior Market Analyst. And one of the things I was in charge of was to analyze, to do competitive analysis in different markets in different countries. Because, I'm bilingual, bicultural, etc. Latin America was a natural extension.
Yeah.
I had to know also about Europe in that sense. And I remember in my master's program, I remember talking about Michael Porter's 5 forces of competitive analysis, right? So you have competition, substitutes, and then you have new entries, and then you have buyers' bargaining power or suppliers' bargaining power. So I said, I want to use that to create an analysis, and that's exactly what I did. So when I presented it, the people were like, wow. I said, yeah, I didn't tell them I used Michael Porter's 5 forces competitive analysis. But it was a good thing. So my point is that you can apply what you learn.
So this is a book, right? That you can just go get. It's called Michael Porter. Because I haven't heard of that personally myself. So
Michael Porter is a professor from Harvard University.
Okay.
The guy came up with this framework, I believe, in the 80s.
Okay.
The guy, when you talk about the strategy, he is the management guru
Wow.
in the business world. He's a consultant, again, teaching business, Harvard School of Business. And it's called Michael Porter 5 Forces of Competitive Analysis.
and this is his theory that he came up, or his strategy.
It's a framework, that's correct, that he uses to analyze your competitive position. He has other theories, like other frameworks, like there is business genetic strategies. So corporate strategies tells you in what industries you should compete in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the business level strategy tells you how you should compete there. So it has to do also with industry analysis. And there are three main ones. You have low cost leadership, you have focus, and then you have differentiation strategies. And then the combination of those three can come up with 5 different strategies. And this is how you will compete in the market, successfully compete in the market. Another day is about profit, right? Profit or financial performance is the end of the day. And listen, I think those coming from the 70s as well, and it's still so valid that companies need to go through that. And then you have other tools like Boston Consulting Group, Matrix. I mean, I can keep going and going, but strategy, again, is also a mindset. It's not a plan. Strategy is about how to compete in the market, and the strategic management process will give you your competitive advantages, something I mentioned already at the beginning when I talk about entrepreneurship.
Can I ask you what your business was that you happened to actually sell? What kind of business was it? Like a service-based business? What product did you sell?
I was involved in media.
Okay.
And now we can call it legacy media because I was in the publishing business. So that happens around the year, early 2000s and then 2008, just before the financial crisis. And it has to do with media. So we were publishing newspapers in different cities, and we were doing radio shows, talk shows, news in that particular sense.
Yeah.
So I love radio, and I did radio again, I said 7-8 years. And so there was a whole package there.
Were you one of the people that was doing the talking on the radio then?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Of course. Myself and my editor that I had for the company. Together we were discussing the news and articles, opinions, of course, we were giving. And mind you, that was a little bit before the explosion of social media. Mm-hmm. So radio was an important component.
This was before like the podcast era.
Way before.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
That makes sense. And how would you then sell? What exactly were you selling to clients then? Was it ads?
Advertising.
Okay.
So I was working with advertising agencies and, of course, end customers or, companies, businesses, etc.
Do you mind if I ask you, are you allowed to disclose some of your pricing strategy for like doing ads for
back then?
Yeah.
Many things have changed since then. But this is how you price. That happens in this industry and many other ones. That's a big question. How much should I charge for my service or for my product? And different ways to tackle that. One is, how much is the market willing to pay for what you have? Right? So the market will dictate exactly, how much of that. And then you can go and say, all right, so this is my cost, and I really want to profit about this. I want to mark it up 10%, 20%, 30%. And that's another way to do that as well. Another way to do it is what the competition is doing. So if I can afford something lower, if I want to compete based on price, that's what you do as well. Another way to do it is you create what I call portfolio of brands. In other words, let's say you are Toyota. In your brand's portfolio, you have a Lexus and then you have a Toyota Corolla. So you design that portfolio of brands. In that way, you can attract more individuals at different price ranges.
Okay.
So that's a strategy. Automakers follow, of course, and you have seen, in the service industry, I do this for free. just for you to try my service. And then what about if you like it? Let's do that. For example, one of the other businesses I mentioned, that was during the big explosion of the personal computers. We're talking about now 1900s, late 1900s, so 1998, actually, no, 1994, IBM introduced the personal computer. So we're talking about 1994 and then the rest of the 1990s. Selling computers was very lucrative business. You can get like a 40% commission on that. I mind you, I was in college when I studied that, and it was very good. It was a good business. But then everybody started to do the same thing. Now they had to reduce the commission base. There were more people willing to do it.
More competition.
The market was, larger now, but more competition. The good thing about competition is that the market can be expanded. You can have, because they start promoting it, and then all of a sudden there are more customers.
It becomes more specialized typically, right? Like you can specialize in certain areas and promote those areas more when you're in that.
That is all right.
In a big market.
And something interesting, I specialize in the desktop publishing area, right? So the graphic designers, for example, and production companies, video, etc. And what I found was that then I need to do another jump.
Another jump?
A jump. I needed to do something else. So was not now selling the hardware computer because I saw a lot of people doing it. I started now doing training in using the computer and the software. So I became a software instructor.
Wow.
I did that quite well for several years.
I was going to ask, how do you tell what the next trend is? Because you seem to be a master of determining trends in the market and really jumping on those quickly.
You need to keep informed. You need to know what is happening.
What are some sources for keeping informed?
Well, magazines, for example. Well, let me start with the top ones. My regular readings are from the Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, The Economist, etc. Now, they are reporting on what already happened.
Yeah.
But that gives you an idea of the trends.
Of where it's going.
Yes. And then you have other writers, other magazines. For example, remember, Startups, I believe is another magazine. Entrepreneurs, that's another that's another magazine. That gives you a chance to see what smaller businesses with ideas and innovations are coming into the market. And that's the beauty of this, reading those two extremes, because Wall Street Journal will tell you about big corporates, right?
Yeah.
But then the Entrepreneur magazine will tell you, you know what, the guy on the corner just came up with this idea and is trying to develop it. And this is a success story.
Wow.
Right? And usually the small guys are the innovators. And you can see happening. That's why you have the big companies, Microsoft, Google, and others, buying the small guys.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
Because in that way, this is how they innovate. Something happens when you incorporate that, you stop innovating.
I love this. I know we're not going in quite the direction that
I know, but that's okay. We can keep talking about entrepreneurship and then another time leadership.
I love entrepreneurship. I'm really looking for a way to make money faster, better. Because really what I've noticed in the world, you either have to really hone in on being a specialized person in order to make a decent amount of money, or you need to start your own business. Or you need to start out with some form of capital to invest into the market. And those are like the three biggest options, it seems like, that will make you rich quicker.
Something I want you to consider is finding a purpose.
Yeah.
I don't think you ask business owners why they start their businesses. The financial end goal is there, and hopefully they have a exit strategy. I want to sell my business, right? And that's good. Typical example, Elon Musk, started with a video game, sold it, and then it was PayPal, I believe, sold it, and then move on.
And now he's sticking with his niche. Well, he's got multiple businesses now, but
well, I believe Elon Musk is not human. I don't know. Well, when you listen to him, he works 100 hours a week. When Tesla was now delivering the 500 vehicles per year, I believe it was. That was the first goal in the first stages. He fired the chief engineer at Tesla, and then he became the chief engineer as well. At the same time, he was the CEO, and he was living in the company, in the headquarters.
He tends to like to do a lot of the mechanical things himself, doesn't he? Isn't because he's got a very mechanical mind, and so that helps him really in that field in the tech industry, in the car industry, right?
Yes.
So
You know that he was doing his PhD in physics. I believe it was from Stanford University.
that's crazy.
And he quit the first 6 months to start Tesla. And very interesting. And now, look at this. Let's use theory. Are you familiar with the Cybertruck?
Oh yeah,
All right. By the way,
looks pretty sweet.
they started delivering the Cybertrucks, and I remember that was probably 4 years ago when I think they were asking for $400. You will pay $400 to be in the wait list. So I did that, and then I forgot about it, and I said, Cybertruck never happens, and I withdraw my name. But now they started delivering the Cybertrucks. And the first time I saw the Cybertruck, I said, what kind of design is this? What is this concept coming up? And I found out that Musk applied something called principles theory.
Really?
And the principles theory says is when you design something, you start something, you usually start with something you already know. So let's build a pickup truck. All right, so let's make it better than the F-150. Right? That's the original thought. What are they doing good? So let's copy and let's improve it. And the idea of the Cybertruck, according to the principal story, was no. Let's imagine that a truck doesn't exist. How would you do it? A truck that doesn't exist. You don't know what a truck is, right? And then everything is starting from there. So that's why you see the weird body. Composition, you see how it's actually built easier, better, faster than a regular truck, etc., etc., etc. So, principal story, so it's very interesting.
So he started from scratch, is what you're saying. He completely wiped out the theory of a truck existing, and he just started saying, all right, we're going to reinvent the truck, essentially.
Or invent it from nothing. I mean, truck doesn't exist. What would you do? We need... What do we need? Well, we need functionality, we need power, we need size, we need this and this. All right, put it together. It doesn't exist yet. And again, going back to theory, right? There's nothing better than a good theory.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I was telling you about the purpose because I know the end goal is about financial goals, performance. However, you cannot start like that.
Right.
You really need to find your passion and do something about it. I will tell you a case. I remember I was in the university. Nearby the university, when I was a student, there was like a food truck, more or less. It was a stand, actually. It wasn't a food truck, but a stand. And the person was selling hamburgers. So I ended up talking to the person and trying to figure out how much money that person was doing, because besides that, the stand was only restaurants around it. And this guy was always busy. The food was decent, price right, students. And I saw him one day driving a very nice car. He told me one day he had a nice house and he was paying the school for his children. And I figured out that he was making more money selling burgers than a faculty in that university.
That's wow.
Now, he enjoyed that, but probably I will not do it.
Right.
It's not my passion. It's not my thing about talking to people all the time and, serving food and figure out menus. It's not my cup of tea. But then I have seen other individuals that they find what they really want, and that's the main thing.
Would you say purpose is then it? Would you say it's a certain thing that you're wanting to do, or is it deeper than just doing something in the world?
Purpose has to do with your strengths, your abilities, your capabilities, desires, aspirations, and it might be God-given opportunity as well for you. Being your own boss, takes a lot of uncertainty, right? You need to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't have the psychological safety of receiving a paycheck every 2 weeks or every week. You don't have that.
Yeah.
So you need to have certain personality traits in order to say, doesn't matter, let's keep going, right? Failing, for example, that's another issue as well. Ambiguity, that's another issue as well, that you need to do that. So the purpose, you need to find it. People ask me, how do I do that? Or how do I know what my strengths are? And I said, tell me the things you are good at. Sometimes people will say, I don't know, right? Well, what do you think people would say you are good at? So it's a reflection process. You start thinking about it. You know what? This is good. This is something I really am very good at. And this is something I really enjoy doing, right? And maybe not related to what you studied, for example, or went to school for, or something that you're currently doing. But it's a process. And the sooner you find that, the better. But sometimes it takes time. Do you know what is the average age of entrepreneurs in America? What do you think it is? The average age.
Well, I know Ben Franklin was what, like 50 or something when he finally got his start in not just the entrepreneur world, but the political world. But I'm going to say 35.
Wow, very good. It's around 45 years old. Why? Look at this. An individual had experience, or probably working for somebody else, had several experiences. Might have the education. They are in a position in their lives that they can really focus on that. You know, we talk about Elon Musk, 100 hours a week. I don't think he enjoys his family. He doesn't have time for that. I think his goal is to have 20 kids.
Yeah, something crazy.
He has 4 or 6 with the wife, and then others, kids around. You know, so it's so interesting to see that 44 years old is the average age for entrepreneurs in America.
What would you say I would need to work on first before even trying to push toward the monetization route?
I think you said at the beginning, you need to find something that makes you unique and valuable. Okay. Is someone really willing to listen to what you have to say? Based on what? But you have to do a lot of research on that. I know YouTubers or podcasters that they need to really do a lot of research before, talking or commenting on something. So that's one. I think choosing the mic. I think you do have a talent, by the way. Your voice is great. I think you have a good presence. I met you when you were doing the TV show at the university.
I've definitely gone a little bit downhill since then, gotten a little rusty, but I'm trying to work on those skills a little bit more.
And then what I have seen in other people is they found a market niche. If you take an MBA program, something that will happen to me, by the way, something I came out with from the master's program was segmentation, market niche. Find a niche that nobody's paying attention to, might identify better with the audience or the public, and they will find a value to do that, and then you grow from that particular point. I don't think the strategy is right to be everything for everybody. That's not right. So
that's true. And that's something I kind of find myself trying to do.
Next time when we talk about leadership, we will see that motivation and inspiration from the leader is so necessary for the follower to be there. You're a leader and no one is following you. You are just taking a walk in the park, right?
That's interesting.
You need to have that capability to influence other individuals, and that goes through motivation and inspiration.
What are some steps to actually be influential in the world, and actually making it so people want to follow you?
The first thing that comes to mind is charisma.
Okay.
Charisma used to be studied a lot at the beginning. There is a big debate still going on. It has not been settled. Is a leader is born or is made, right? So the first the first approach to leadership has to do with traits, personalities. We talk about skills, and we talk about behaviors. So that was the first aspects when the leadership theory started to develop in that particular sense. What makes an individual a leader?
Yeah.
And then we move from that into what do leaders do? How do they behave?
Yeah. What do they do exactly?
And then we move into a situational leadership. And then we move into a more contemporary leadership theories like a transformational leadership, transactional leadership, authentic leadership, servant leadership, etc. And what I usually have seen is, again, charisma. And charisma is something that people see that you have, and they want to emulate, they want to follow, they want to do. Charisma can be projected in a negative connotation, or can be really positive. But, when in my studies, I realized that Barack Obama, for example, when he became president, brought back into the discussion, into the leadership literature about charisma. We were moving away from charismatic leaders. Usually, we tend not to believe in a charismatic leader, right? Because you can fake it until you make it. However, since Obama, that's, again, my opinion, I think the charisma component came back. Donald Trump, for example, that's another charismatic individual, right? And we can go politics, business, non-for-profits, and etc., where you do have some certain charisma that is necessary for people to pay attention.
So charisma is the first thing you need to be if you're trying to lead any kind of corporate, any kind of industry, any kind of corporation, anybody really. You need to be able to talk to people. Is that what charisma would be? Is the ability to communicate well in a way that captures attention?
Charisma has to do with how people perceive you are. I mean, are you someone I can learn from? Are you someone I can respect? Are you someone who can help me? For example, French and Raven, since the 1960s, they came out with sources of power, right? You need power in order to influence individuals. And they came out with 5, and then years later, it was actually in 1975, they came out with the 6th source of power. So you have, for example, expert power, referent power, you have coercive power, reward power, and then you have the information power. And it's so interesting. I give you an idea. I was in a meeting where there were 7 or 8 of us. The person running the meeting, the chair, was actually competing with another individual. Every time this individual would say something and everybody needed to have an opinion or a comment on that, we looked to another individual that was not actually leading or sharing. So I was like, why people are looking at them?
Yeah.
And said, wow, interesting. So I started paying attention to this individual. So I asked some questions to the individual, and I see how this individual will respond to comments or his own opinions on that. And they said, definitely, this is a referent power, expert power. Referent is when you like someone. I like you. I want to follow what you're doing. That's fine. Great.
What was that? It was referendum?
Referent.
Okay.
So you like the individual.
Okay.
Expert power is when you recognize that individual has knowledge and experience, and you want that. You want to emulate. You want to learn. The individual has something to give you for you to grow later on, right? So I said, this person, expert power, and I saw a competition with the chair trying to say, hey, look at me. Right, but people were not looking at him. They were always directing their attention, and they are looking for the approval on that particular individual.
So he was the referent. You were the expert, right? And
he was the expert.
Oh, he was the expert,
and everybody was looking at him because that expert power. So I recognized in him his expert power, and that was very appealing for individuals to look for approval from him.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. What exactly would you say makes Donald Trump charismatic? What is it about him? Because it seems like his charisma isn't quite like Barack Obama's.
Well, Barack is, he was a lawyer, I mean to say. And he was well educated, of course, and very fine talking. I mean, you see him talking, he's your best friend, right? That's, he knows me. He talks to me. He has that capability. Donald Trump is a street fighter.
Yeah.
It's a guy, you wanna fight with me? You wanna piece on me? Let's go right now. So it's a street guy. I think connects very well to that. He says what he's thinking, right, at the moment.
Which can be a good and a bad thing. It's kind of a positive and a negative.
I always have said that there are people who think too much what they say, others that say too much what they think. But I do believe that some of the things Donald Trump says resonate with a lot of individuals. It's just that it's not being spoken out there. I think the guy, Donald Trump, has been trained since he was little to do that. For example, one of his quotes is, "You want to think big," right? That's one of his quotes, for example. And I think people started to appreciate that. Like, oh, it's like me. We can connect, even though he's rich, multimillionaire. It's like me. He's very prompt to answer particular questions and challenge reporters. I don't know, you have seen several videos on that.
I will say this. I've seen watching some of his speeches. I'm just like, he just doesn't finish his sentences. He kind of like rambles on, and then he connects to a point, and then he goes again and rambles on. It's kind of funny to watch. And I'm like, what do people actually see in that? And I think the reality, like you're saying, they can connect with this guy who's not talking so fluently. He's talking like somebody who's just on the street, just chatting it up with you, ready to go. And
probably you're right. He's very simple when he communicates.
Yeah.
I'm rich. I'm very rich. What does that mean? Why are you saying that, right? Or, you people in the back, shut up.
Yeah.
Right? Talking, oh, you are a nasty person, and then calling nicknames to individuals. Wow. I think that's something that, but also he has certain acumen. He's a smart individual. On comments on things he was doing, people were criticizing, how dare you? But then, guess what? He was right. In many elements.
Yeah.
So that is so true, is the way how he sees things or says it, but also it's about that, he knows. Again, charisma has to do with inspiration, and has to do with motivation individuals, but also has to do with intelligence. You need to have a certain level of intelligence to become a leader. And intelligence, I mean, not the IQ per se. Probably I need to do with more knowledge and experience. You need to walk the talk. People need to see that you're competent. By the way, there is 3 elements every leader should consider to have credibility. One is you should have character, right? You walk the talk. The other one is competence. I mean, you know how to do things, right? You know how to do things. And the other one has to do with that you care for others. It's caring. Like, I'm doing this because of you. When we talk about transformational leadership, for example, one of the elements is that through inspiration and motivation, you take individuals to do things, otherwise they will not do it, and will go against their self-interest, just for the sake of the leadership component, right? So it's transformational leadership. So very important. Another time we will talk more about that. But I do believe that it is important for leaders or aspiring leaders to understand how human psyche works. Emotional intelligence is a big deal as well for leadership. There are so many developments around leadership. We still studying leadership. We haven't really understand. When you go to Amazon, for example, and the website, and type leadership in the book section, there are more than 300,000 titles that appears. So a lot has been written, and every person you ask about leadership, we have a different say. You need to do that. You need to do that, this and that. What is the best leadership style? And what do I need to do to become a leader? And I remember this, and I will tell you that because I know you are young. I remember after one of my talks in a seminar on leadership, somebody came and said, "Great topic, great tools, great tips, great everything. When I become a leader, then I will do those things." And I said, "You're wrong. You are a leader. I remember reading Cindy Touch. She wrote a book, Ellen G. White, on leadership. Wait, the Bible talks about leadership. It's a gift, actually. It's given. And she said, if you're a Christian, you are a leader. So a leader, we are understanding more and more and more that, for example, the humble leader is the best leader. The humble boss is the best boss. So humility should be part of the equation. You see new authors, Renee Brown, I believe it's called. Renee Brown. She talks about vulnerability. When people see that, okay, so the leader is not perfect, is human, has shortcomings and faults, but is able to recognize those things, is able to share with me all those things. People tend to follow individuals like that. Now, leadership has to do with cultural aspects as well. So leadership in Asia, in Africa, Latin America is completely different from the Western world. So we need to understand those concepts as well. But Donald Trump is a very interesting.
He is super interesting. I don't think anybody's been like him in history, have they? With that style of leadership, seems like he has so many people hating him, but so many people loving him so much, and it's even more than people loved Obama. It's more than I think any definitely president in history that has ever.
I think Donald Trump is the most recognized name in the world.
That makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, go wherever you want to go, people will know about this guy. At least heard the name and see him saying that kind of stuff.
What is the leader? What is the one leader that you would aspire to be more like? What is somebody that you look up to and you're like, I want to be like that guy, or like I want to share certain attributes of his style of leadership?
Interesting. There is a book. The title is "Become the Leader You Want to Follow."
Interesting.
Yes, I do believe in situational leadership. There is not a single best leadership style, and a lot depends on the situation and depends on the followership. Depends on the task at hand, depends on what you need to do. There is I can find it, I can read it to you. There is a psalm in the Bible that talks about the character of a leader. Let me see if I find it. But it has to do with how we actually treat others. At the end of the day, have you heard about servant leadership? Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, what do you know about servant leadership? Or what comes to mind?
Leading by example, I think is probably the best way to phrase it. Being able to go out there and not only tell people to do something, but be willing to do it yourself, and then be willing to do more than what everybody else is willing to do, and to sacrifice, to basically sacrifice for those around you. And you are the servant to your constituents, right? You're to the people that you're trying to lead. You're not the person that they serve. You're the person you serve them. Is what comes to my mind when.
Sure, and you're right. The word gives it away. Greenleaf in the 1970s came up with this concept, summer leadership. By the way, I have seen a lot of companies already posting in their websites and your mission or vision statements on we practice servant leadership in our organization.
The company I work for, the guy when a new president came in, that's what he said. We're going to try to do more servant leadership in the company, and to be honest, they have stepped it up and they've done a pretty good job.
And the word gives it away. You are servant first and leader second. So the leader should serve the needs of the followers, and at the same time to accomplish organizational goals. That's the whole point as well, right? But look at this. This is Psalms 15, 1 through 5. I believe this is God's portrait on leadership. Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle, who may dwell in your holy hill. And then look at this. It says, he who walks uprightly and works righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart. He who does not backbite with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up a reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised. That's a very powerful element. But he honors those who fear the Lord. He who swears to his own hurt and does not change. That's another powerful thing. He who does not put out his money at usury, nor does he take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things should never be moved. So you asked me what kind of leader I aspire to be, and that's exactly it. There are some qualities there that were mentioned. You possess integrity, honesty. Does not participate in gossip. You speak the truth all the time. Does not harm others. Sometimes we think that in order to keep climbing the corporate ladder, you need to step on other people because you need to shine. What I said about pursuing money or career positions, etc., is what we call the rat race, right? And what I tell people is the problem with the rat race is at the end of the race, you're still a rat. Do you understand that? And we need to avoid that. So don't get into those things. So it does not harm others. It speaks out against wrong. That's powerful. You see something that needs to be talked about. That's something that needs to be addressed. You cannot close one eye. Honors others who walk in the truth. That's very important to recognize. Keeps their word even at a personal cost. Right? And all this is coming from the Bible verse I just was reading.
That's awesome.
It's greedy to gain at the expense of others, and it's strong and it's stable. Again, another time we can digest this more.
I would love to do that. Yeah, if you want to come on for part 2, we can go over more on leadership, actually, and not just entrepreneurship, even though I think that's really good, and I think we should dive a little deeper into even from step 1 to selling your business, or from finding purpose in your business, or I don't know, something along those lines. I'd love to do several episodes with you. That'd be great.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And where can people? You have a website for leadership training. That is correct.
Correct. So it's Jumpstart Leadership.
Jumpstartleadership.com.
You can find me there.
Okay, it will be linked also in the description for all those out there on YouTube. So I think people should be able to find you, and maybe you can get some more. Do you take clients? Do you consult people?
I do business coaching or leadership coaching.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and have a good one.
Thank you.